Hey there folks, and welcome to this video. And much like how yesterday I was weighing in on a debate about F1 and livery rules, today I want to weigh into one about WRC, and it's to do with the 2022 regulations. And the main debate of this is, will it make the WRC better? A very open-ended question. You can contribute in the comment section down below, because it's just so subjective to so many different terms. Like, what do you mean by better? And I'm going to argue that in almost every aspect, it is. Sure, we're not going to see the kind of stage times and faster speeds in the same way that we have with this current generation. Because, well, the cars are going to lose the active central diff, and they're going to go down to a 5-speed sequential shifter rather than a flappy paddle. And that's down from 6 to 5 as well. It's going to be heavier because it's carrying the hybrid, even though it's going to produce more power. And it's going to be getting to the high end of where Group B's were instead of the low end of Group B's, which is where we currently are. And of course the reduced aero is going to be taking things back. But I think, yeah, every other metric will be an improvement. I saw something on Dirtfish where they attributed a quote from Tom Fowler, Toyota, who has indicated this might create the ultimate rally driver. For me, one of the big things is that on tarmac, this generation of World Rally car almost had to have a circuit racer mentality, and it was largely similar on gravel. But the difference was, even though the aero package is the same across both rallies, that kind of aero doesn't work on gravel rallies. Like, in terms of a cost effectiveness, you see splitters get absolutely destroyed, you see the arches having lumps torn out of them as well, you see the wing mirrors go flying off, maybe some damage to the rear wing and the rear bumper. And all of that adds up. And for a private team like M Sport, who usually rely on the sales of those kinds of things to be able to keep themselves afloat, scaling it all back will really help. Because for me, it's not a matter of, oh, I liked the WRC and the noughties, the cars were so easy. But at the same time, those cars back then, you could have so many people running them. You could have so many privateers almost feasibly run a World Rally car. Not necessarily for a full campaign, but for a limited campaign of a handful of rounds. And in this generation, we very nearly had that. We very nearly had Volkswagen being in there because NASA Alatia was going to back it. But that didn't happen, because it was just so unaffordable. And we're talking 2017 there. It's only stepped up as we get into 2021, headed towards 2022. You see Hyundai and Toyota spending almost an F1 team-sized budget, and the WRC's really never been like that. And I think that's where my mentality is. Sure, the cars are going to be slower, but the cars being slower means we can bring back classic stages. The current generation of World Rally cars is too fast for a lot of the classic finish stages, like on Empoyer. If we could have on Empoyer back in the WRC because it's safe to do again, I think that's a net win for the WRC. Likewise, if we're talking about just rallies more generally, a lot of the rallies had to change their routes because the fact was the cars were so much faster, but slowing them down is going to help. In addition to that, additional stuff to the safety cell means that if they have a high-speed crash, they're more likely to be able to come out of it relatively intact. We're lucky that we had so many massive accidents. I talked about this in another video about the M Sport 2022 car. We had so many massive accidents, and there were some people like Didi, for example, pointed out Chris Meek's crashes. You had Chris Meek, you had Kalle Rosberg last time out in Croatia, you've had massive crashes to the likes of Oit Tanak, Thierry Neuville, and they've all gotten away from it just fine. The WRC doesn't necessarily need to have big crashes, but it's good to know that when a big crash happens, they're going to be safer now. So we can bring back these old rallies. We can bring back on Empoyer. We can bring back... I don't know. Like, I just want the WRC to be more affordable. And with these rules meaning that the cars are going to be cheaper, it means we might be able to have more manufacturer entries. It means we might be able to have privateer entries again. And not just the likes of Lorenzo Patelli, who has all of the money in the world. And that's where I really want the WRC to be. Because one of the biggest comparisons I've made about this whole generation of World Rally cars, this is very much replicating what Group B was going to be. And the next generation is almost where Group A is. or was, relative to Group B. Because I was concerned that we were going to go down a Group S kind of route. And luckily, out of all the horrible things in the world, that's meant that the WRC has gone, hang on, it's not feasible to do our Group S style of thing. We will actually have to scale it back, and that is a good thing. Because it means that we might be able to see more manufacturers coming in. It means that we might be able to see privateers coming back. And I don't necessarily want to see like privateers capable of winning every rally they start. That kind of level of equality. And it's not anything against privateers, it's just I have a feeling that we'll have to style it way back for them to be able to match those kinds of budgets. But I want privateers to be able to challenge for stage wins and podiums. I want it so that the likes of Gus Greensmith, who has developed a lot as a driver in this generation of car, can buy an M Sport, can pay for some mechanics to keep the car maintained, and he can just run his career. A bit like how we saw the likes of Anthony Warmbold. Because I don't care about the pay driver argument. Even if you make those arguments about Lube, about Greensmith, about Katsuta, I don't care. Because the thing is, like, Katsuta's there for pace, Greensmith is there for pace, Lube is there for pace. They wouldn't be the respective champions or winners that they are if they didn't have any kind of pace in them. But I want it to be that they're able to affordably compete and still score the solid results that they're scoring. So that we can see a Chris Meek in the WRC, and Toyota don't have to worry so much about the repair bills if he crashes. Or we can have a Hayden Padden on a full-time program, or a Craig Breen on a full-time program, or Danny Sauter, even though he wants to do a part-time program, on a full-time program. That's where the WRC should be, and I know I'm looking back 20 years to provide my examples for this, but like the WRC formula got rapidly more and more and more expensive, as most formulas do. But bear in mind that for the longest time Mitsubishi kept a Group A challenger. And it was still competitive. We need to have a step back to the Group A, and for me, that's why I think this next generation WRC will be better. And I will use that term, better. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.